On November 25th in the year 1952, The Mousetrap, a murder mystery written by the novelist and playwright Agatha Christie, opens at the Ambassador's Theatre in London. The crowd-pleasing whodunit will go on to become the longest continuously running play in history. When The Mousetrap premiered in 1952, Winston Churchill was the British Prime Minister, Joseph Stalin was Soviet ruler, and Harriet Truman was our nation's 33rd president. Christie, already a hugely successful English mystery novelist, originally wrote the drama for Queen Mary, wife of the late King George V. Initially called Three Blind Mice, it debuted as a 30-minute radio play on the Queen's 80th birthday in 1947. Christie later extended the play and renamed it The Mousetrap, a reference to the play within a play performed in William Shakespeare's Hamlet. On November 25th in 1952, 453 people took their seats in the Ambassador's Theatre for the London premiere of Christie's Mousetrap. The drama is played out at Monkswell Manor, whose host and guests are snowed in among radio reports of a murderer on the loose. Soon, a detective shows up on skis with the terrifying news that the murderer and probably the next victim are likely both among their number. Soon, the clues and false leads pile as high as the snow. At every curtain call, the individual who has been revealed as the murderer steps forward and tells the audience that they are partners in crime and should keep the secret of the whodunit locked in their heart. Richard Attenborough and his wife Sheila Sim were the first stars of The Mousetrap. To date, more than 300 actors and actresses have appeared in the roles of the 8 characters. David Raven, who played Major Metcalf for 4,575 performances, is in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's most durable actor, while Nancy Seabrook is noted as the world's most patient understudy for 6,240 performances, or 15 years as the substitute for Miss Boyle. The Mousetrap is not considered Christie's best play, and a prominent stage director once declared that The Mousetrap should be abolished by an act of parliament. Nevertheless, the show's popularity has not waned. When asked about its enduring appeal, Christie said, "It is the sort of play you can take anyone to. It is not really frightening. It is not really horrible. It is not really a farce. But it has a little bit of all these things, and perhaps that satisfies a lot of different people." In 1974, after almost 9,000 shows, the play was moved to St. Martin's Theatre, where it remained until March 2020, after which the COVID-19 pandemic suspended performances. Agatha Christie, who wrote scores of best-selling mystery novels, continued her eternity in 1976. It was on November 25th in the year 1990, after a howling wind and rainstorm on Thanksgiving Day, Washington State's historic floating Lacey V. Murrell Memorial Bridge breaks apart and sinks to the bottom of Lake Washington, between Seattle and its suburb to the east. Because the bridge's disintegration happened relatively slow, news crews were able to capture the whole thing on camera, broadcasting it to a rapt audience across western Washington. It looked like a big old battleship that had been hit by enemy fire and was sinking into the briny deep, said one observer. He added, "It was awesome." The Murrell Bridge was the brainchild of engineer Homer Hadley, who in 1921 proposed a floating concrete highway, permanent and indestructible, across Lake Washington. Figuring out a way to cross that lake between up-and-coming Seattle and its, at that time, sleepy small-town neighbors to the east was a particular challenge because an ordinary fixed pier bridge was out of the question. The lake was too deep and its bottom was too mushy. Still, people scoffed at what they called Hadley's Folly. One civic organization declared that this chain of scows across Lake Washington would stand out as a municipal eyesore, but eventually, mostly because they had no other options, they came around to his way of thinking. Construction began on the bridge named after the state highways director and brother of famous newsman Edward R. Murrow in 1939. It was completed 18 months later. In November of 1990, the 6,600-foot-long bridge, made of 22 floating, bolted-together pontoons, was in the process of being converted from a two-way road to a one-way road. A parallel bridge had been completed the year before, effectively doubling the amount of traffic that could cross the lake. The State Highway Department alleged that construction crews had left the pontoons' hatches open, leaving them vulnerable to the weekend heavy rains and large waves. For its part, the construction company refused to accept responsibility for the disaster, countering that the probable cause of the failure was progressive bond slip at lapped splices in the bottom slab due to failure in bond. It did eventually agree to pay the state $20 million, however. For whatever reason, at midday on November 25th, the center pontoons began to sink. As they disappeared under the water, they pulled more and more of the crumbling roadway down with them. By the end of the day, the bridge was gone. Fortunately, no one was injured in the incident. The Murrow Bridge was soon rebuilt. It was November 25th in the year 1999 that the United Nations General Assembly passes a resolution designating November 25th the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. The resolution, which was introduced by the Dominican Republic, marked the anniversary of the continuance of eternity of three sisters, Maria, Teresa, and Minerva Mirabal, who continued their eternity there in 1960. While women in Latin America and the Caribbean had honored the day since 1981, all UN countries did not formally recognize it until 1999. Many organizations, including the United Nations Development Fund for Women, UNIFEM, had been pushing for international recognition of the date for some time. A year earlier, Noeleen Heyzer, the director of UNIFEM, gave a speech at a fundraising breakfast in Toronto, Canada, encouraging men and women to participate in 16 days of activism against gender violence. The voluntary effort was to begin on November 25th and last through December 10th, the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was passed in 1948 as a response to the genocidal terror of the Nazi regime. This 16-day period had particular significance for Heyzer's Canadian audience, for one of Canada's most horrific tragedies occurred on December 6th in 1989 when Marc Lépine went on a shooting spree at École Polytechnique in Montreal. Lépine had entered the college with a shotgun and shot 14 female engineering students who continued their eternity before turning the gun on himself, and what later became known as the Montreal Massacre. In his suicide note, Lépine declared his murdering spree to be an attack against feminism. Women's organizations worldwide have successfully pulled together for increased awareness and support of their cause. Although this is a sign of positive change in the struggle to end violence against women, statistics show that there is still much work left to do. A report released in 1994 by the World Bank entitled Violence Against Women, The Hidden Health Burden, estimated that 1 out of every 4 women worldwide has been or will be raped. The report also said that violence against women is as serious a cause of death and incapacity among women of reproductive age as cancer, and a greater cause of ill health than traffic accidents and malaria combined.